This video classroom lesson is sponsored by Transmission Bench. Visit the transmissionbench.com store for the Deluxe Super Kit, other parts, and even the video classroom lessons used during this project.
Henry Ford said, "Quality means doing it right when no one is looking." Our goal is to build a transmission of the highest quality, and we're about to do more looking together. It's great to have you back. This is Ford E4OD 4R100 class, Lesson 8. In the last lesson, we took apart and inspected the forward and direct clutch drums. This lesson is about a final inspection and cleaning of all parts, along with making notes about which ones need to be replaced. We need to take one last thorough look at all of the individual parts we placed onto this bench and make a list of the ones which are damaged. We need to take a look at the case too. It's easier to inspect if it's clean. The case, extension housing, and pan are the only parts which can be cleaned with water and detergent. You can take them to the car wash, blast them with a high-pressure washer, or even use a steam cleaner. Just make sure to blow dry any bare steel parts, such as the detent roller and spring assembly. After that, you can inspect the threads in all of the bolt holes. For example, look at the pan bolt holes. If any of the threads are stripped out, restore them with helicoil or other brand threaded inserts. Check the pump to case, valve body, and extension housing bolt holes too. Again, inspection is much easier after the case has been washed. And remember, only the case, extension housing, and pan can be safely cleaned with detergent and water. As I mentioned in an earlier lesson, use mineral spirits, sometimes labeled paint thinner, to clean everything else. It won't oxidize steel or harm electronic and plastic parts. I put about a half a gallon into a small container like this one and use a brush designed for cleaning small parts. Wear gloves to protect your hands. I recommend cleaning one part from the bench at a time and setting it back before cleaning another. It's very important to keep a notebook and pen close by. You can easily forget details, so write down the name and item number of any parts you find damaged. The parts layout of your transmission will look different from mine because this demo transmission was clean prior to teardown for clarity. Your parts, on the other hand, should still be dirty and dripping with fluid. That's okay because you're going to clean them now as you inspect them. You can start with the last parts removed from the case: the output shaft and parking gear. Take them to the tank, clean them with mineral spirits, blow dry if you can, and return them here onto clean shop towels. Make sure the bushing journals and this surface for the thrust bearing or washer are smooth and free of any damage from deep scarring or gouging. Moving forward, take a second closer look at the parking gear to case thrust bearing. Or if you are working on an E4OD model, a thrust washer. Take it to the tank and clean it. This thrust bearing should turn silky smooth even without fluid on it. Here are the item numbers if you need a new one. Wash and check the low reverse roller clutch inner race. The surfaces here and here should be absolutely smooth with no steps from wear or deep scratches. If you need a new one, here are the item numbers determined by model year. Clean parts such as the piston, return spring cage, cushion plate, end plate, and snap ring for the low reverse clutch. I rarely find these parts damaged, but replacements are available if you need them. You can ignore the condition of the friction and steel plates because we'll replace them with new ones from the kit. Let's clean and take a second look at this group of parts. It consists of the drive shell, rear planetary gear assembly, low reverse clutch outer race, along with the roller and spring cage assembly, as well as a few thrust bearings and washers. In order to separate them and stay orderly, let's move them to another work area. This is the low reverse outer race and hub. Lift it off and set it aside. Remove the roller and spring cage assembly by rotating it counterclockwise slightly and pull it out. If you're working with an earlier 1989 through 1992 model, the cage will be made of metal and you will have to remove a snap ring which retains it. Take a close look at all of the rollers. They should be perfectly round and free of any pitting or other defects. Check each of the accordion springs too. Years of flexing at the folds can cause them to weaken and break. If any are missing or broken, the entire assembly must be replaced. The plastic cage should have no signs of damage, such as distortion or melting from overheating. If you need a new one, here are the item numbers. These are the output ring gear, output hub, and output hub to inner race thrust bearing. Check this bearing as we did with the others. Here's the item number. Check the ring gear teeth and thrust washer surface of the output hub. If either are damaged, you can replace them by removing the snap ring to separate them. Here are the item numbers. Inspect the rear planet to output hub thrust washer. Even though the surface appears to be worn, it isn't. It's actually in excellent condition and can be reused. Only the very thin tin coating has been rubbed off. Again, it is perfectly acceptable to reuse it if it looks as this one does. If yours is badly gouged or melted and smeared from overheating, here's the item number for it. Check the condition of the rear planetary gear carrier. First of all, set the drive shell to planet thrust washer aside. This washer is the same as the one on the other side of the carrier. Note how they have very similar wear patterns. Both of them are in great shape. Inspect each of the planetary gears. They should turn easily without binding or rocking side to side, which would indicate needle bearing damage. Check all of them. There are 5 different rear planetary gear carriers. It may have 3 or 6 gears, it may be made of aluminum or steel, and it can have 12 or 24 outer lugs. Here's an item number chart. This is the small snap ring which fastens the output shaft to the output hub. If yours is broken or distorted, it is item number U36594A. Inspect the drive shell and sun gear assembly. Make sure the teeth are healthy. If any are chipped or missing, the sun gear must be replaced. It can be detached from the shell by removing the snap ring. The sun gear only, with new bushings, is item number 36612A. The 2 bushings within it are almost always badly worn. You can check them by using the output shaft. Simply slide it onto the shaft and check for side-to-side clearance. There should be no more than a few thousandths play. As you can see, these bushings are worn out. Actually, most of the sun gear bushings I check are worse than these. The sun gear bushings should always be replaced. They are included in the Deluxe Super Kit, but if you need them separately, order 2 of item number 36040. Finally, take a look at the sun gear to front planet carrier thrust bearing. Like all the other needle bearing type thrust bearings we've encountered in this transmission, it should feel silky smooth without any crunchiness or seizing. A new one is item number 36232A. Wash these parts individually one at a time. Then reassemble the parts as a group and return them to the parts bench. Moving forward in the transmission, let's take a look at and clean this group. Begin by checking the forward planet to forward clutch drum thrust bearing. This one feels nice and smooth, but if you need a new one, it is item number 36232A. By the way, it is exactly the same as the sun gear to forward planet thrust bearing. The plastic hub to forward drum thrust washer should look like this one. If the one from your transmission is broken, melted, or missing any of the 3 tabs, you can order a new one. Take a close look at the forward planet ring gear and hub. The journal, which rides against the planet carrier, should be smooth and free of gouges or smeared metal. Check this surface. Earlier, E4OD models use a thrust washer instead of a thrust bearing between the hub and carrier, and there may be unacceptable damage such as gouging. It should be absolutely smooth. Make sure none of the ring teeth are chipped or missing. If you need to replace either part, separate them by removing this snap ring. There are 2 types of the hub depending upon if the planet carrier uses a thrust washer or thrust bearing. Either one fits the same ring gear. Depending upon year, type, and number of gears, the forward planet carrier may have a 3-tab thrust washer, a 4-tab thrust washer, or as you see here, a thrust bearing between the forward hub and forward planet. Here they are side by side for comparison with item numbers. Inspect the forward planet carrier as we did with the rear planet carrier. Check for needle bearing damage by trying to rock them side to side. They should turn very smoothly. These feel great. There are 5 different versions of the forward planet carrier. Here's a chart to help identify and order a new one if you need to. Wash the parts of this group in mineral spirits and make notes of any part which needs to be replaced. Put the group back together and take them to the parts bench. Even though we disassembled and discussed the forward and direct clutch drums in the last lesson, take a few minutes to not only inspect them again, but also to clean them and make notes of any parts needing replacement. Wash and check the forward drum to center support thrust bearing, as well as other components of the drum, such as the end plate, apply plate, and Belleville return spring. You can refer to Lesson 7 for the item numbers. Do the same with the direct clutch drum. Moving along towards the front of the transmission, wash and inspect this group of parts, which consists of the center support, intermediate and overdrive clutch pistons, and the cylinder which supports them. Let's take a closer look at the center support. First of all, clean and check the center support to direct drum thrust washer. Your model may have a plastic or metal one. If it is badly worn, cracked, or melted from excessive heat, here are the item numbers. Inspect the inner bore of the steel part of the support for sealing ring damage. The area where the sealing rings of the forward clutch make contact should be absolutely smooth without any gouges or grooves. The bore should have only the faintest slight polishing to indicate where the rings were riding. Take a close look at the direct clutch sealing ring grooves. They should appear as these do, with no evidence of contact with the drum. Check the inner roller bearing. Rotate the inner race. It should turn effortlessly without any inplay or chattering. If you need to, you can drive the old one out and install a new one with a large socket, extension, and hammer. It is item number S36224A. A new steel half of the center support with the roller bearing already installed is available. It detaches from the aluminum half after these 3 bolts are removed. There are 2 versions depending upon the model year. Wash the assembly and return it to the parts bench. Also clean the pistons and piston cylinder along with the Belleville spring and snap ring. To avoid confusion later, leave all of the lip seals in place for now. We'll carefully remove them individually, one at a time during reassembly in order to compare with and select from the new ones in the kit. Finally, clean and inspect the coast clutch drum, overdrive planetary gear assembly, and pump. The item numbers for replacement parts were given in Lesson 6. The valve body area sub-assemblies, which we placed into the pan, should not be cleaned at this time. In order to stay organized, we'll wash and work on them during the final lessons of the project. That's it. We've finally reached the end of the teardown and final inspection of old stuff. Join me in the next lesson and we'll go shopping for some new stuff such as the Deluxe Rebuilding Kit, a Shift Correction Kit, and the High Performance TransGo Reprogramming Kit. I'll see you later in Lesson 9.